never, you know, it was coming time where my contract was ending, and I either needed to know that I was going on a mission, or I needed to start looking for more work back in the States. And it had been long overdue. And so I called the bishop and said, I need to kind of know what's going on. And so he called and asked about it, and I never got a response, never. For me, I never received anything from the church, never. And I think the stake president got a letter, a general letter, saying that they were no longer accepting mission calls from older missionaries. They weren't going to send out older missionaries. And, you know, that was pretty devastating, because I felt like, first of all, I never heard anything. The church never acknowledged me in the whole thing. They never sent me a paper saying, you know, when it was my mission call, it wasn't my stake president's mission call, and that wasn't even necessarily about me. That was a general letter sent out to everybody. And the bishop felt embarrassed, and there were things where I kept saying to the bishop, you know, I don't announce it to the ward, don't announce it to the congregation, because, you know, I just want those mission papers in my hand before I really know that I'm going. And he didn't. He told everybody in church that I'd put in my mission papers, and then one Sunday he just randomly called me up to speak about missionary work out of the congregation. And, you know, and I know that he was doing what he felt he needed to do as a bishop to prepare me to go on a mission, but in the end it was pretty devastating, you know. It's like I put in all this work and all this money and all this time and energy to get ready to go, and then it was just a huge slap in the face. And I kept trying really hard to not be bitter and not be angry and not hold that against the church, and I didn't. I felt like I did a pretty good job about doing that, you know. But I was angry. I was angry. I was hurt more than anything. I was just really hurt and pretty embarrassed, you know. That now everybody's asking, where are you going on your mission? Where's your mission? You know, have you got your mission call yet? I'm not going, you know. And I specifically asked the bishop not to say anything, because I didn't believe that I would really go until those papers were in my hand. And so that was, you know, even my mother was really disheartened by that. And then I came back to the States and I worked, and that's where I worked down at Tuacahn and met Clark Johnson and Jacob Woodmar and all these things, and ended up, it was interesting interacting with Clark, because Clark was out, yet active, and like Clark says on his videos, like it's this guilty by association, and I was so uncomfortable with who I was that I loved Clark and I loved spending time with him and I thought he was fun, but there was also this element of embarrassment in being with him, because he was so free and open and didn't care what people thought, and there was some envy with that, and that brought out a lot. And then I struggled because I kind of got involved with someone down there, and that I went back and forth, like, because I had been through the temple, and now I was, you know, kind of having a relationship, even though I wouldn't admit that it was a relationship, and it was intimate but not sexual at that point. And then we both went to go up to BYU, and we both got the boot from BYU.
How come?
Because we were involved. Somebody from that summer job had called the honor code office and said things, and they did their manhunt and called all of our friends. And even though at that point in time we had a very physical relationship and very intimate, it wasn't like we hadn't been sexual, you know. I guess we had been sexual, but we were, like, we'd never been naked together, you know, there were things, but they just wouldn't believe that, you know, the honor code wouldn't believe either of us that, you know, nothing had happened. We hadn't
technically
been
broken
sexual, yeah, you know. And so they gave us both the boot, so that kind of like pushed us both over that spot where like, well, we might as well. So it took our relationship a little further, but then I still had all this terrible guilt, so I took a job in Tokyo again to kind of run away from that. You know, so I did a lot of running away and coming back and forth, but it's been nice to be in New York. I've been in New York for 5 years now. It's the only place that I've really called home. And I have friends from back home, friends from Idaho, friends from Utah, friends from college. It's great that way, but I have all these new friends, that such a diverse group of friends and such a diverse city that, you know, helps you explore who you actually are. And so,
what is your relationship to the church now?
You know, it's interesting. I don't really know. I've kind of, for me, I know that I can't, it's all or nothing. So I've just kind of like, I don't think the Mormon Church has a place in my life. I mean, I'll always be influenced by it a little bit. My family's, you know, a lot of my family, extended family, they're
Do you consider yourself Mormon or not Mormon?
I don't consider myself Mormon. I'm scared of my mother. I don't know what my mother would do about that. I mean, my mother and I have a very deep respect, and I love my mother for being the Mormon mother that she is, and she's an amazing grandmother. And every once in a while she'll say something that will kind of rub me the wrong way, but I know that she's doing her job as a Mormon mother, that she does have a concern, of course, for my eternal salvation and that. And so I've kind of learned to not hold it against her for doing her job as a Mormon mother, because she's come miles, and she's not the mother that she was that I grew up with. I mean, she's a pretty impressive lady at this point, and my father too. I mean, they've been through a lot, and I think it would hurt them to hear that I don't really have a relationship with the church, and that I don't really even consider myself a Mormon anymore. And it's been interesting just this past year to kind of explore that. I definitely have a very strong belief in God. I've always felt aware of a God in my life. But now I don't know. I think there's almost something that I might consider myself agnostic, where I just don't know. You know, I definitely have a belief in God, but I don't know. And I felt like my best friend's husband is actually doing a reading of a play in Salt Lake City about the shock therapy that went on at BYU. And he's playing a couple different characters, and he called me to get any insight on it, because my clogging teacher had been through the shock therapy at BYU. And so he was just calling to kind of get some insight on that, and asked me if I'd heard a few of these names, and I didn't really know them. So I started looking up online about the shock aversion therapy that went on at BYU, and we had a long conversation about it on the phone, and just led me to different websites and stuff, and I don't know. I don't know what I believe. It's interesting to read the anti-Mormon websites, where I'm like, I don't know if that's true. Like, there's just so much, and I'm just kind of more on a journey to kind of figure out what I truly believe. And at this point, I truly believe that I'm okay.
And what do you see,
I'm okay
like,
with being gay, and okay. I love being in a relationship, and I love sharing that relationship with my family, and at some point, you know, I would love to have some sort of commitment ceremony,